Hi, this is Robert Kiyosaki, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. This is the most important thing you can listen to today.
Would you like to join us? Now, what do I mean? Robert Kiyosaki, who endorses the show every day, from Rich Dad Poor Dad, wrote all about owning cash flow assets. And he summarizes that down to two things: real estate and businesses. He says both are where wealth generation is created, and preservation. So we have a fund right now available called Capital H5 that does just that, does two things. It has an incredible asset behind it, 400 acres, a mile plus of waterfront, incredible structures, and numerous revenue streams with an operating business. We'd love to have you check it out. Visit accountableequity.com/fund.
It's the one.
I have a dream.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I can do this all day.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Cinderella story out of nowhere.
It's in the hole. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Welcome back to the big show, Capital Hacking. My name is Josh McCown. John, Edwin, thank you for doing this with me.
Wow. Do we have a show for you today, guys? Brian Beers brought down the house. Now, we usually joke and clown around quite a bit, but we dive right in. Deep knowledge, depth of wisdom in the franchising. What do you got, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, think about it, folks. Franchising is a word we've all heard about. We've all watched the Ray Kroc show. He breaks it down in a different way. Like, is this something you, Mrs. Elliptical Runner right now, or Billy Bob, the Tesla driver, whoever's listening, could you be an owner of a franchise? That's the question that I think you have a lot more insight after this show.
He said something really interesting, Josh, if I could just pop in on this, because I wrote it down. He said he teaches ordinary people how they can build extraordinary wealth.
Yep, because he breaks a lot of that down, because he does. But I'll tell you, there's a couple teases. Here you go, folks. He teaches the secret skill set to know if you will succeed as an owner of a franchise. He also teaches a strategy that only he has ever said on the show. It's called build, then buy, instead of buy, then build, which is the opposite, which is when you buy another business that already exists. And instead of building it, you buy it. Well, he's saying, well, what if you could build one and then buy it? What a curious concept. He's going to explain it. He does an analysis about buying existing boring businesses, like Cody Sanchez says, or buying a franchise. He does a pro and con back and forth. But what is it like to buy an existing operating business? What is it like to buy a franchise that doesn't yet exist in your market? And then he's going to go into just his own shift of mind and mind shift. He also tells you how he bought several businesses. So he's done it both. He's bought existing businesses. He's bought franchise businesses. There's a lot in this that will change the way you think about how money is generated in business and in franchise. I think you're going to love this episode.
Let's go.
Every time we get to do a show, it's a gift to both John and I, and having Brian Beers on the show, the guy who's famous for podcasting, famous for franchising business, famous for a lot of things in our world, John. This is an enormous episode.
Man, and Josh and I have been working on getting Brian on our show here for a little while. So it's nice to finally have the time where we could all three get on this show. But this is your third time. I know that it's a dynasty, Brian, but it's great to have you on this show. And can you give us a little background on who you are and how you got into franchises and building wealth and all kinds of great stuff?
Yeah. So I'm Brian Beers. We all live here in the Philadelphia area. I mean, I've been in franchising my entire life. As of today, my brother and I own and operate over 30 automotive repair franchises here in the Philadelphia, New Jersey market. We do over $42 million here in 2023 in revenue. We have like 200 employees. That's kind of our primary business. And then we've rolled kind of the money we've made into that. We're launching it's like a painting franchise for house painting. We bought out the entire Philadelphia and Lehigh Valley area. We launched that February. We plan to build that into a $15 to $20 million a year business over the next couple of years. I also have a business where I help people buy franchises. So, a lot of my kind of stories and success, and I share on Twitter, and I've got a podcast, and, these people reach out, say, how do I buy a franchise? How do I find a good one? How do I avoid the bad ones? And so I've got a team, and I help people make the jump to become entrepreneurs. So that's a little bit about me.
And a little more. Family life is super important to you. How big's your family now?
Yeah. So I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Chrissy. We've been together since, sophomore year or so of high school. We've got two beautiful girls that are 2.5 and just turned 7. So
congratulations. What, by the way, I only know one other guy who married his high school sweetheart. He happens to be on the same show today.
Well, the interesting thing, Brian, is from what I've heard in studies that have been done, when you marry young, your chances of that relationship working out for your entire life is much higher than most.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, but I got married at 22, and I believe that to be true, John. You know what the theory on that, since we're going to give marriage advice right now, so everybody sit down, we're just going to teach you all about marriage. There was a theory I had about this, and this doesn't go against anybody else's marriage, of course, but there's a value of getting married young because you actually build who you are as an adult together. And it just kind of, listen, it doesn't always work, John. You and I are blessed, and Brian's blessed. It doesn't always work. However, it's cool that Melanie and I really designed our entire adult life together. So it does kind of, I can see why we're going to make it. I pray to God we make it. We're 26 years into it, but we're going to make it all the way through to the grave. But doesn't mean anything negative about anybody who gets married different times, because I've seen it all work. But now, John, unless you want to, go off of that tangent, we have got to get Brian to unpack the story a little more. That we're going to go into franchising. We're going to get there. But I know Brian real well. He's been on 2 episodes before this. He was a keynote speaker at the Accountable Equity event where we did a learn and grow. And man, you brought the house down, Brian. Like, everybody's still talking about what you shared there. So you're going to give a snippet of that in a minute. The lens, and I don't know Brian, you're good at coming up with teachings. What is it called when you start to look at the world differently, and then all of a sudden you see this prism of opportunities? Because that is my interpretation of your life. You grew up with a father and a family that worked really hard building out a few unit franchise business.
Yep.
You must have uncovered like clues to the success, but then your prism, your eyes saw it differently. Instead of just always doing what that family business was, you did that. You went out and leveraged that expertise, bought several more of those, but then you saw the prism and you saw, oh, wait a second. I'm actually going to launch a franchise business, and I'm going to teach people why they're good. You saw it differently than maybe your dad did, and I think that's an incredibly important part of capital hacking as a mindset, or business building as a mindset. How do you think you saw that prism perspective?
Yeah. And so I think, a lot of it comes down to what are the skill sets you're really good at? And in everyone, we each have different skills, right? And some people are really good with their head. Other people are really good with their hands, right? It's kind of hard to do both. For me, I'm really good, I think, at seeing, like you said, what is that opportunity, kind of this picture in your mind of what kind of business do I think I could build? And then going out and putting that into place. And I think a lot of times some people are really good at working with their hands, or really good at doing the work, but maybe have trouble seeing beyond that. Which is okay. I think everybody starts that. Everyone starts by doing the work themselves. But I think those, even in our circle, who've built kind of these massive fortunes and, kind of these lifestyles that I think, many of us, try to get at, they do that by leveraging other people. It's the people capital hacking of the who, not how. And they figure out, well, I am only one person. My capacity is only so limited. And the only way I'm going to grow is I can get other people who are better at it than me to go ahead and to do these things. And so I think, kind of you shared, my dad got started in the 70s. He started with one location. Him and my uncle grew it to about 6, and they were kind of hands-on in the business every single day. like running stores. They were the general manager over the whole business. Made a lot of money, provided a great life, for our family. Towards the end, we're ready to kind of get out and sell, just kind of walk away from it. And, I joined and learned the business and obviously grew it from just a handful of locations to what we have today. But a lot of that is like me replacing myself, so then I can continue to focus on the bigger and bigger kind of roles and opportunities. So.
Yeah. And just to summarize that story, which we've told on earlier shows, you saw that, you saw one other thing that I think you got to get other people to see, and that is that of the community of colleague franchises that your father knew, like your family owned a few together with your uncle, but then you knew like dozens and dozens of owners that were aging out. And so you came up with a business model that helped them have liquidity of some sort and to get new energy back into theirs. That was actually your first major leverage point, wasn't it? So just describe that for those listeners who haven't heard that show before, because that's something that you put the dots together and it just worked.
Yeah. So like in a franchise business, it's like a private community, and franchisees want to sell to other franchisees. It's like selling to your friend, right? That each other, they understand the business. They're already most likely going to get approved by the franchisor because you've got this like third party involved. And so, a lot of times franchisees want to sell to franchisees. And so to get the deals, like you want to be known, liked, and trusted. And so like, I knew that, and I built relationships with other people who owns, locations in the Philadelphia market, to be, come the guy they trusted. And when they were ready to sell, like I was the first person that they reach out to. And
wow.
Then we can go and, we can work a deal out. And a lot of times we've done millions of dollars using seller financing as the method of acquisition, because sometimes the things we're buying aren't profitable, and like a bank isn't going to give us a loan on it. Or sometimes they want a price that is a premium on the cash flow from like a normal, like a third party looking at this thing would be like, why would you ever pay that? But like as an insider, just like you looking at a building, like you see like wedding, sales when the other person only sees like their vacation home or whatever, like, these deals, like we know what a business can do once we apply our principles and our way of doing it. And so then we can get involved in these things. And I've paid, 10x for 10 times earnings, where maybe it's only valued at 2.5, but immediately like we 10x the profits. And so then we just got a hell of a deal.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of these deals we structure with owner financing, where I pay a down payment to the seller, and then I pay them, monthly payments that include principal and interest, and just like a bank would. And for the seller gets retired, and they get monthly cash flow from a very reliable person, me, and we get a business at a great price and can grow it.
Yeah, and I want to dig in a little bit on this. So there's epiphanies that we all can have, and there was an epiphany that I got to experience, and I would love for us to share what Brian's saying. So he's saying that Sam owns this business. He wants to sell it, but it's not that profitable. Think about it. Sam might be eking out $100,000 after tax, after cash. Like that might be all he's getting this year. He might, maybe it's 200,000. It's a lot of money for most people, but it's not like he's not hitting home runs. He's not buying Ferraris. So Brian comes in and structures a purchase that is on paper maybe $1 million, but he then gives the guy approximately probably what he was taking home before he quit. Right. Yep. So as long, in your mindset, Brian, probably like, well, as long as I make sure that guy gets $200,000 a year for the next 10 years, he's actually going to consider this a worthwhile endeavor, because now the next day he doesn't have to show up and do any work.
Right.
So
yep.
It's not so much whether it's intangibly the biggest amount of money, it's whether it's a big money to him or her. And that's kind of probably how you did it, right?
Yep. And a lot of these franchises, not just ours, the small operators, so people who own like 1 or 2 locations, 3 locations, maybe 4, for those people, it's their job, right? So when they sell, they're like selling you their job. They're selling you their headaches, their problems, like the things that give them frustration, which is why they wouldn't just continue to collect the check every month, because it's work. And so, as you get bigger, so in my role, like we can buy that 1 or 2 or 3 locations but to me, it's kind of like an investment, because I've already got layers of management and, COO and CFO and district managers. And we've got this layers as you build out your company, that to to me, like I'm buying that at whatever 2.5, 3 times earnings. He gets his kind of payday, his monthly payments, whatever. But then for me, now I can wrap that in my system. And so there's like this arbitrage between buying someone else's job versus, like, for me, it's just like this investment. And then, for a big company like mine, I mean, if we ever sell one day, obviously we're going to be a whole lot more than 2.5 times like a turn. It's going to be 7, 8, 9, whatever that looks like. So there's like instant value creation for me, rolling up, these locations.
Brian, I just find this so interesting, the world of franchising. When your dad and your uncle had the 6 locations and you started to grow that, how did now I understand franchisees like to sell to franchisees, totally makes sense. How did you get the word out that you were looking to buy more locations?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the franchise, but many of them have it's like their own mastermind or community where, there's chats, right? There's like a private chat group that you'll be in with other, franchisees. Larger ones have, regional meetings. They all have national meetings. Many of them have what are called franchise advisory committees where, I sit on the board of that, where, it's kind of the best people around the country who are getting together. They're meeting with the franchisor. We're going over kind of problems, opportunities, kind of the business plan. And so, if anybody like wants to grow in a franchise, the easiest way is you get involved, right? And you become known, just like, I'm sure there's people in the accountable equity group who participate in everything, and everybody knows them. And like, if they've got a deal or something related to, life insurance, they're talking to MC or whatever, right? Like you become known in the community, and in a franchise system, it's the same. It's actually a big part of like due diligence when you're looking at buying into a system. One of the big things you want to know is how strong is that community. In the communities I'm part of, they're very strong because it's very important to me. I know there's other franchises and brands that aren't, and they're extremely disconnected, and people feel more like they're on an island. And so that, for me, that's like a big under the radar, nobody really knows about until you're in it. And then it can be super powerful.
Love it. If I can ask another question, because Josh, you came out firing.
I'm ready to go, baby. I'm ready when you are.
You are. You're ready to tag in any second. And we may be jumping a little bit ahead here, but what made you decide you wanted to jump into a totally different category of franchises, like going from the Midas to the painting franchise, right? Otherwise, why didn't you stay just in that lane of continuing to buy those store locations?
Yeah, great question. So I think, at a couple reasons. Number one, the Midas business is heavy focused on real estate, right? We need prime retail real estate, major roads, an existing automotive building. Like, economics don't make sense to buy ground and build one. We also need consolidated ownership because of management and synergies between employees and customers and marketing and all this stuff. So like, we can't just have one store an hour and a half away or one store in Texas or whatever. They need to be in the markets. And so, number one, we're just running into bottlenecks on the Midas side. It's just, it's harder and harder to find these. The competition's heating up because all major brands, we're all competing for the same real estate. And so we want to continue to grow. Like, I get high on growth, like that's my, like, I want to keep growing. I want to keep growing. Like, for me, it's like it's ego, or it's whatever it is. But, so I feel like we're starting to hit a limit there. So that was part of it. So then we were saying, all right, so if we're hitting a limit here, what if we could find another business that was the inverse of this, that had no real estate, had no like assets, because we also invest a ton of money on buildings and roofs and equipment and
smart.
All this stuff. So what if I could find a business that was the inverse, and in a lot of those ways that are creating bottlenecks for me? And then I think about, like, what are my skills? Like, as a leader, or as an organization, what are our skill sets? And we're really good at sales, at marketing, at people, at process, right? That's what a lot of franchises come down to, is hiring great people, getting them to follow a process, driving sales, controlling your costs, right? That's what it takes. So then if I say, all right, well, if those are my skills, can I find another business that I feel, has like those skills make it successful? And so I help people, buy franchises, and I've looked at hundreds and stuff. And, so I kind of had that checklist that I was looking for. Number one, I wanted to own Philadelphia. I wanted asset light. I wanted no real estate. I wanted something that was like sales and marketing. And I wanted something that was like a mass consumer business, just like auto, right? Like everyone's got a car, they got to get fixed. Everyone's got a house or business that has to get painted. Like there's no education on like, I don't know, you get into like IV drips or red light or cold plunge, or you get into all this stuff that, you could probably make a lot of money with it. But like, there's a learning curve to that, right? You have to educate the market. There's no clear winner. Like, I think for some people who are really into that, that's a great business. For me, like, someone's going to pay to get their house painted next week. And like, I just want to get in front of them and get that job. And so part of it is like, you got to find a business that matches your skill set, your goals, your budget, like it makes sense where you're at. And for me, it checked all those boxes. It happened to be a painting company. Like it could have been flooring, it could have been roofing, it could have been blinds. Like I think that the like end product matters less than like what does it take to operate the business? And then once you get really good at that, like once we get good at operating like a mobile home service based business that's sales and marketing driven, that uses contractors to do the end result. Like if I can get really good at that business, I literally could duplicate it into roofing's the exact same model. Flooring's the exact same model. Closets and blinds is the exact same model. Cabinets. I don't know if I do cabinets, but cabinets, like, so there's like a bunch of things that once you really, and this is like the lens that Josh talks about, but like, once you really understand, like, what is the business model, in that it's a sales and marketing company that happens to do X,
right?
Then it's, it becomes easier and easier to duplicate, which is what I do best.
I just love, guys. I hope the listeners, you're driving around, you're like, where's the funny part of this show? It's
I'm not
so
that funny,
rich. It's so rich. No, Brian, you're freaking amazing. I would call this a master class, because we're going to do a couple other deep dives into this. Let's go into the world that you kind of took this idea of a community within a franchise, and you flipped that on its inverse, and you created a community outside of that with Business with Beers, the famous podcast that you own. And then on top of that, in the world of Twitter and in social media, you now are a magnet to people that want to at least hear from you. What's a community of a franchise like, and how do I even look into this if I'm thinking about it? Great job on that. First of all, did you know you were going to do that, or did it happen naturally that you became a source of information on franchising?
So it became part of a plan. It was intentional, obviously. I've had the podcast for years. For a while, I didn't have much direction. It was kind of like, hey, I'll bring in anybody. We'll talk about anything that Brian finds interesting, which is just, which is a lot of fun. I learned a ton from it. But, I wanted to hone in to say, all right, like, how do I got the focus on how do I help people? How do I help ordinary people build extraordinary wealth through franchising? Because that's what I believe is possible. That's what happens every single day. And so I got on Twitter, last summer, and just started sharing my story a little bit more, talking about here's how I grew it. Here's the things I look for. Here's what I wish I knew. I also had 2 other franchises that we were involved in that failed. I lost a ton of money in. And so I learned a lot from that too. And like, so I think one of the coolest things about the internet is like, and Twitter specifically, but podcasts or TikTok or whatever, is you get on, you share your story, and you attract people into your world who see themselves in you, who want to, where you were and where you want to go. And so, so I had all these people reaching out saying, how do I find a franchise? What should I look for? And so then basically one thing led to another, and I eventually started this franchise consulting company where I now have a whole team of people, and we help people buy franchises. So we interview franchisors, I meet other franchisees like in their brands. And so then people come to us, and then we really try to understand them and their goals. And then to kind of play matchmaker to say, hey, I think, you should talk to this brand, you should talk to that brand, you should stay away from this type of one. And it's a ton of fun helping people get into these things. Cause, go ahead.
Brian, with your franchise consulting, and I think that's super smart, super helpful. You're serving others, helping ordinary people build extraordinary wealth. We love that. Do you invest with them? Do you have a piece of things that you're interested in?
Yeah. So there's a couple that we've done some deals with. Franchisors don't make it easy to raise money to invest as a franchisee. Normally, franchise agreements require all equity holders to also sign the franchise agreement, which, you know, has non-competes and it has certain restrictions and there's things in those. So it definitely makes it more difficult, anybody to raise money as equity to buy it. But we have done some deals. We're partners in a home healthcare business here in Philadelphia that we have a rock star guy. I'm working on another deal now that is part of the same family as the painting company. So like I'm already kind of in with the painting company. So like for me to sign another franchise agreement with somebody else operating, it's not a big deal. But yeah, I am looking for people who are really good operators, and, you know, we can help bring some of the expertise on it.
That's actually a great point. Do you have like a web form we could direct people to? So there's the people that are really great at operations, have zero capital now, but they don't realize their human capital is something you might want right now, and you could help them leverage their talent. Do you collect people?
Not currently, but they can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter, Brian Beers, and they can shoot me a message and just say you heard about on Capital Hacking. And yeah, I'm happy to talk to somebody who have really good operator proven experience. I mean, we would look to, you know, help them get into a brand, and then, you know, we could also help with some of the capital and some of the guidance.
Or join one of your many things you own.
Possibly. Yeah. That could be an option too. I mean,
yeah. So that's the one thing that's a surprise to those listening. We who have businesses that we got started, all we're looking for, and anybody listening who works with me knows this, I'm just looking for people to get in the boat with us and help us row. You know, bring your human talent, your creativity, and just help us achieve this one vision together. And it's something that's like people like us are always like eager to hear from someone who's like, I would love to do what you're doing. May I join you? So I imagine Brian would be like that. We're going to pivot into a really interesting thing that you've talked about it once or twice already on the show, which is the painting business. But correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't originate that painting business. You just kind of got in with the sponsor, the franchisor.
Yeah, we're a franchisee.
Get in at the beginning? Oh,
we're a franchisee. Yep.
Okay. Have you ever considered someday owning a franchise business?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my goals is to be
a franchisor.
Have ownership in a franchisor, to be on the kind of other side of it. You know, I think back to kind of like, what's my skill set, right? And do I want to be heads or hands? And like, you know, I don't necessarily want to be the guy like running the day-to-day of the franchise, but I think I can, you know, I can come on, I can add a ton of value. I can obviously help bring people into the world on the lead gen and kind of the coaching. And, you know, a lot of times it's just confidence. People just need confidence that they can go out, you know, and that they can start this thing and they can grow it. You know, there's obviously a ton of fear around, you know, quitting your job, being an entrepreneur, going out on your own, all this stuff. And I think one of my skill sets is helping people realize that they can do it. Like ordinary people can do it. Anybody can do it, as long as you're good with, you know, people and process. So,
you know, Brian, all this talk about franchising, let's talk about, there's this whole genre going on right now of a lot of social media related to it. I'm actually very interested in it, which is people buying businesses. Now, your story starts that way, that you had a niche, an expertise in one industry. You helped buy more of those units, those stores. Now, those same people that are out there saying, I should probably buy a business because everybody's podcast says buy a business. What's the difference between the person who should buy a business that exists and take out an SBA loan, or the person who should buy a franchise system that is a really strong franchise system? How do people differentiate between should I buy an existing business or buy a franchise unit?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, a lot of the people we work with basically started out that way. I'm going to find an existing boring cash flowing business that the owner has a fax machine and doesn't have a CRM and hasn't raised his prices in 5 years. And they follow Cody Sanchez and all these people, and like, or Harvard MBAs, Harvard's teaching all about this. And they look and they can't find it because every single person's trying to find this thing. Right. And so then what happens is they end up or they find a business that like isn't really the right fit, but they're like, they want to get in the game. And so then they kind of forced to make a deal work. Or, you know, they're trying to buy something that's 2 hours away. And it's like their first business. You're going to buy something like 2 hours away. that is like pretty difficult then, right? And you're taking on, I think, a bunch of unnecessary risk there. And some of the big differences, right? And are number one, I think, it's like this risk reward where like you're going to buy cash flow, right, of a business you know nothing about, with an employee base or consumer base that you don't know all the details, right? They could tell, you could see it's diversified. You don't know it's like his golfing buddies, his wife actually runs like everything in the back office.
Yeah.
That his main guy is gonna retire in 3 months, but hasn't told you yet, and you can't talk to him because nobody knows he's selling.
Oh my
and then
gosh,
you just
it's
took out
perfect.
this big multi-million-dollar SBA loan and you personally guaranteed, and maybe you raised money from friends and family, and like maybe you have a great business plan and all this stuff, and you're very experienced, but there's a lot of unknown risks. Like these guys try to like de-risk everything, but there are still a lot of unknown risks. And on the franchising side, you start from zero. Like the risk is you start from zero, and you don't know how long it's going to take to get to the point that it's like, quote, worth it to you, to make 200, to make 300, to make 500, 700, whatever your goals are. But some of the benefits are you've got this community around you. So like you buy a business, you're independent business, right? You're totally on your own, right? Like
Good point, by the
you
way.
have a mastermind maybe you're part of, but like you are on your own. You buy franchise, there's corporate support, there's other franchisees, like you're part of this community. You can share ideas and best practices and challenges, and a good system, you're never alone. There's also this like speed to scale. Like I think a lot of times what's exciting for me about franchising is you got this ability, a good one, right? And there's 3,000 franchises. Not all of them are good. Like this is part of like asterisk here, is this only applies to the good ones, but the good ones allow this like speed to scale because they're taking over a huge portion off your plate. They're taking over, like they've created a brand, they run the website, they know SEO, they know marketing. A lot of them, like the painting company's got a whole call center, in-house call center. So they do all the marketing, the lead gen, all this flows to a call center that books leads on like my guy's calendar. They have coaching, weekly coaching, monthly coaching, different dashboards. So guys are going to be able to like get in and get up to speed really, really quickly. And so all this means like as an owner, like my job is to focus on operation, to focus on sales. Like you focus on less things, and then you can go a lot faster when you're not worrying about how do I do SEO optimized? How do I do this? How do I do that? Right? That slows you down when you have to take on all this stuff. And then you've got this opportunity in that speed to scale model of number one, acquisition. So you can grow through acquisition like I have. A very common model that I like to talk about is build then buy instead of like buy then build, where you
build and buy.
You build the first one. So you get into a franchise system, you build the first one from zero, but you only need one unit to be a member of the country club. So then you get in the system, right? And then you start building relationships with the other franchisees. And let's get franchisees want to sell to franchisees. They don't care whether you have one or 100. Like if they like you and they want to retire, like, or they want out, they're going to sell to an existing franchisee. And it's not only legacy brands, even new brands, even the painting company, like it's 3 years old by now, but there are people that buy into a franchise and it's just not right for them. Right. And they want to get out within 6 months, a year, 3 years. Like, and so it's not only legacy brands, it's all brands have transactions going on. So you can get in, you get your foot in the door, you build your own business, and then you see if you like it too, before taking on all this debt to maybe you do want to go out and buy a bunch of things. But then, like, hey, do I like this business? Am I good at it? Like, do I want to risk a bunch to grow? And, now you know about the business. Now you know if this thing works or not. And then, like we talked about, like, so you can do acquisitions, you can do greenfield development. So you can just buy more territory as long as it's available. You can continue to buy. And so the painting business, I could say, hey, I own whatever in Philadelphia, but hey, now I see that St. Louis is open or Chicago's open, or I don't know, other markets, and I can get talent there. Like I could potentially operate remotely. There's no real estate. There's no, there's no like restrictions that would hold me back other than talent. Or like we talked about, you can go vertical. You can do painting, you can do floors, you can do roofing, you can do whatever and cross sell. And so I think once people start to like really see like all the different paths in it, it starts to make sense. And a lot of times people think that like a franchise is like, oh, you buy yourself a job, oh, you're just like working for corporate, and it's just like glorified this and that. But the reality is that like, that is true. In some models, that is like a Chick-fil-A, that is a little bit more the truth due to some restrictions that they put on franchisees. and requirements that they have. But in a lot of franchises, you are a business owner that happens to operate a franchise. Like I have a business that happens to operate 30 plus, Midas franchises, but like I could have easily been, Meineke franchises or car, whatever franchises. Like I would be the same person. I would run my company the same way. I would have the same core values, standards of service and run it the same way. And so once you realize that the franchise is just kind of the sandbox that you get to play in, and you have rules that you have to follow and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's your own business and you can grow it as big as you want.
Brian, you have completely changed my mind. You just literally did something Matrix-wise.
Okay, good. That's what I do.
In my mind, because I've never thought of franchising like that. I've never thought, perfect sense you just made, where it's like guys are going to look to buy a business competing with other people, and then they have to learn how to like reinvent the wheel when the wheel is already invented and going with franchises, and there's parameters set in place, and you just follow their system like a blueprint, and then you have opportunities to buy more from other people in that industry. Man, you articulated that better than I've ever heard anyone do that.
Okay, good. That's awesome. I appreciate that.
And as we wrap up here, we're going to make sure you share how we can follow up with you. But the final question that the audience is begging us to ask, which one of the skill sets, we all have the different working geniuses, they say, if you are buying a blueprint, good quality business, like John was alluding to, which one of the many skill sets does the buyer have that can add value? Right? Because again, I'm not going to, you don't want me to be the one turning the wrench at Midas. So what skill do you want me to bring as a buyer?
Yeah. You have to be a people person. You have to be your skill needs to be to identify talented people. Like I can't fix cars. Like I've literally never fixed a car in my life, but we employ 200 something mechanics. Their job is to fix the car. That's not my job. Right. Or the salespeople. Like we have 60 something salespeople that work for us. And like some of them are way better at sales than I am. And so I think, as you start to build out a business, and especially in these blue collar, like we do a lot of work in the trades just because that's like, what I'm comfortable with. And honestly, a lot of people that buy blue collar franchises come from white collar jobs. They're executives at Google or Facebook, or, they're in private equity. They make a lot of money, and they're good leaders. They're good communicators. They know nothing about paint or cars or roofing or flooring, but that doesn't matter. That is not their job. I think the biggest skill set is your ability to hire really good people and then to hold them accountable for following the process, right? And doing the things that you want them to do. If you're good at that, like franchising might be a really good option. If you're not good at people, like if like you have short temper, you yell a lot, like you want to micromanage everybody, like, maybe you could stick to real estate or something that doesn't involve as many people, but like, we're all in people businesses that just happen to do something, happen to paint houses. We happen to fix cars, replace blinds, like take care of your dog or kid or whatever it is, but they're people businesses.
It's awesome. Brian, thank you so much for the wisdom that you brought here to the show today. How do people get in touch with you if they're interested in, connecting?
Yeah. So, I'm on Twitter or X at Brian Beers. I'm also on LinkedIn, Brian Beers. I have a podcast, Business with Beers. Those would be kind of like you Google my name, it's relatively unique. So they will find me, and yeah, please feel to connect. Tell me you heard about it here. And if anybody's interested in learning more about franchise, I have a ton of free resources. I have franchising resources, due diligence courses, things just to help like build people's confidence in this. Cause it is like a huge, like life-changing investment that people make. And, my goal is just to give people a ton of totally free resources to help build their confidence in moving forward.
You are the man, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Damn straight. We just got we got to the end of another great show, and everyone listening right now, you're the family and friends. Thanks for staying till the end.
That was so fun. And hey, hit the like, hit subscribe. We're here to serve you guys. That's why we're doing this show. Josh is not paying me. I'm doing this off of my quote unquote sweat equity because we want to make a difference in your life. And then that ripple effect will continue to touch the world.
Hey, amen, brother. Please check us out on capitalhacking.com, all the social media threads. And yes, I know you've probably already sent this episode to one of your best friends. Thank you. We love you. Just go right into your iPhone, hit the plus symbol. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.
Share.